morning, everybody. Welcome to our Spotlight Speaker event this Tuesday morning, and it's a cold and blustery day in Perth, and hopefully the rest of the country, from what I saw, is you're doing no storms like we have. So today, hi, is Sally. Hi, Sally, how are you?
Hello.
Sally's our Spotlight Speaker, so send her lots of love. Our topic is I love you, I love myself more, and don't we all love that? And she's going to be talking about keeping a daily gratitude journal. So as I did in my live earlier, oops, my clock's about to, I've got a couple of my journals here, which you can't see but a few of them I brought out. And journaling's been something I think we've been doing since the 80s. And she's a mum of 4 adult children. She grew up in a family of 6 girls in a small country town, and she was trained to be a good girl. How many of us weren't trained to be that? So she's going to talk a little bit about that. She completed a Bachelor Degree as a single mum and created a new life for herself. Well done for that. That's awesome. She now thrives on mentoring younger women and often their partners to create a healthy relationship with themselves, believing that this is the foundation of healthy relationships with others. So that's just a brief summary about yourself, Sally. So what I'd like to first say is welcome Jackie as well to the call. Lovely having you online. And to all of those on Facebook Live, if you want to ask any questions, put them in the chat and I'll get to them as we go. So just to let you know that I'll be looking down at my screen and just checking who's there. Big Mama's watching, Big Mama's watching, and what your questions are. So Sally, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lee, for this great opportunity to share my message and what I'm passionate about. As you said, I'm a mum of 4 adult children, so I do have a bit of age on me, even though I look stunning. The doctor told me the other day I look much younger, so I was pretty happy with that. I said to her, I'll make sure I come back here again. So yes, I have a fair bit of life experience behind me. And what I love to do is to mentor women, whether they be younger or the same age, or sometimes they're older than me, in having a different experience of life than what we were actually trained to do in our childhood. Like you said, I was trained to be a good girl, and that set me up for an adult life with lots of dysfunction and problems. And I know it's a common story of lots of women and even boys, you know, be a good boy, same deal. And I know, you know, unconsciously I asked myself the question, well, if I have to be told to be a good girl, that must mean I'm a bad girl underneath. and I grew up thinking there was something wrong with me, which was pretty tough.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's not good at all. There's a great quote by, what's his name? Is it David Thoreau? It's left me at the moment, that says, you know, most people live lives of quiet desperation. And that was certainly where I was at the time, just not having any of the answers and not understanding why I was having so many problems when I was trying so hard to be a good girl and a good person. And so, yeah, so that's my mission now, is to help women break through that and to see the beauty and the uniqueness that we all hold within, and to live the life of our dreams, and fulfill our purpose on this earth, and just have a wonderful experience of life here on earth.
And we all deserve that.
Totally, 100%. Yes. Yeah. I loved I've got a few notes here to make sure that I cover the things I want to. I loved what Diana Fisher said on your spotlight. Was it last week or the week before, when she said, we're set up to fail? And that really resonated with me. And that was certainly my experience. And that I hear from lots of people, where, you know, unfortunately, basically, oh, this is a bit harsh, but basically we're raised by children. You know, we're all walking around as emotional children in adults' bodies.
Yes.
And it makes life very difficult. Yeah. And our poor parents, you know, then they're not to blame. They were in the same position, if not worse. I know my own mother and father, you know, back in the 50s when there was no such thing as contraception. You know, my poor mum got pregnant when she was 17. She'd only known my dad for 3 months. Of course, back in those days, they had to get married. And by the time she was 21, she had 5 children, 4 and under, because she had twins. So a baby each year and twins. You know, like what hope did they have, really? So there's no blame at all, you know. That would be continuing the dysfunction to blame our parents. The important thing is that we go on our own healing journey and empower ourselves to become the person that we were always meant to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge Diana and say, yeah, I loved it when she said that about being set up to fail. That was so true.
We can tag her in this event and she can listen.
Cool. All right. So if it's okay, I'll just give you a bit of background story to how my life continued on after being trained to be a good girl. So obviously I was a person with very low self-worth, and I ended up, of course, marrying an abusive, controlling man, because that was what I had attracted. And you know, there was emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse. And the funny thing is, well, it's not funny. The dysfunctional thing is that I would justify that by saying, well, at least he doesn't hit me.
Yes.
Oh my God, what sort of a standard is that? And you know, at least he doesn't go to the pub like my dad used to every night. And you know, at least he provides well for us, and you know, have a nice home and a nice car. Like, that's how low my standards were in my 20s. And the thing is, you know, one day, you know, I tolerated, even though I was miserable inside. You know, I was getting sick. I had this anxiety where I'd scratch my skin and it would bleed. And so, yeah, I was in a really bad place. And then one day there was just the straw that broke the camel's back. I was 30 then. I had 3 children. The oldest was about 6. And that was it. I just, you know, made that decision that this has to change, and ended my marriage and set myself on a new journey of, you know, finding out who I really was and what was important to me. And finally realized, you know, that all that abuse that I'd been tolerating, that I didn't have to do that, and it wasn't right. And, you know, that sounds like obvious here now, probably, but back in the 1990s, you know, there was no education around what was abuse, what was domestic violence. Like, emotional and verbal abuse wasn't considered domestic violence. And also, you know, financial abuse, where you had no access to money. I was always a very resourceful person and always had a job. And, you know, I did the paper round when I was 6. No, not when I was 6. I used to get paid $6. I did the paper round when I was like 11, 12. And then I got a job, you know, a part-time job while I was at school. So I always had my own money and was quite resourceful. And it wasn't until I took on the role of stay-at-home mum that I then had no access to my own money, and I had to ask for money and just accept what I was given, which was not much at all. Yeah. So as I said, I left that marriage and I started to reinvent myself. I decided I was going to go to university, and I did that. And it took me 6 years as a single mum to graduate with a Bachelor of Teaching. So I was very proud of myself. That gave me huge amount of self-worth, long overdue. And then from there, I always said I will never marry a man again, never again. That will never happen again. All men were bastards for many years after that. And but of course, eventually, a nice, gentle, kind man did come into my life, and I had to reconnect with some vulnerability and open myself up again to the possibility that I was worthy of love, and yes, and that happened. I used to do terrible things to him, like, in the early days, he'd drop me at my house if we'd been out, and that feeling, they're coming in for the kiss, and I would slam the door in his face. Because he wasn't going to get me, I wasn't going to get sucked in again. So the poor guy. But anyway, eventually I came round, and we got married, and we had a son together when I was 37 years old. And we've been happily married now for 20 years, which is great. So yes, I turned my story right around.
You did a lot of work while you were still young. I mean, that's a lot of work to do in yourself by the time you're 37. I mean, geez. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, well, I guess it just goes to show how resilient and determined I was, I think, it's that old rock bottom thing where I was just never going to go there again. I was going to do whatever it took to change things around. So, yeah, I'm really proud of myself for that.
That's good.
Yeah, so is it okay if I keep going with the story?
Keep going with the story. We've only been going 15 minutes, so keep going.
Great, okay.
It'll inspire a lot of women are in the same boat right now.
Yeah, and that's my mission.
Inspire them.
That's why I'm here. That's my purpose and my intent, is to inspire other women to raise their standards. I think, we just tolerate way too much. And, we hear about domestic violence on TV and women being killed, and it's just horrific. However, there's also a layer under that of women who are, like I was, verbally and emotionally abused, who are tolerating that. And it's just not okay. That's, as women, there's a point where we have to take responsibility and say, enough is enough. I'm not tolerating this. I deserve better. Yeah. So I met my new husband through horses, because, when my first marriage broke up, I asked myself, what do I really love? What is it that I want to do? And I'd always loved horses as a little girl and never been allowed to have my own. Which probably contributed to that belief that I had that I couldn't have what I wanted. And I just had to go along with whatever was happening around me and outside of me. So I started to spend some time going horse riding and getting into that kind of world. And that's how I met my husband. And I finally, got to have my own horse. And I went on this beautiful horsemanship journey of learning how to train and communicate with horses in a really functional way. And that period in my life went for about 10 years. And one day I was at a horsemanship clinic where there's a trainer, and he teaches the people at the clinic, horsemanship skills. And this guy was from America. He was a big hotshot horseman, and he was extremely rude. And I guess he triggered me because he reminded me a lot of my ex-husband. Anyway, so there was not a good energy between us. And at the end of one of the days, he decided that he was going to single me out and humiliate me in front of everybody. And so he's sitting up on his horse, and he had a microphone, and there were like 30 people watching, and I was standing on the ground, and he just ripped into me in a really, it was just like my ex-husband, verbally and emotionally abusive and totally uncalled for and unprofessional. So I kind of just sucked my lip in, and, you know, my jaw was going, and I sort of walked away and just found a quiet spot to hide.
Oh, no.
And yeah, and it was an overnight thing. So we were staying at this centre overnight, and other people, particularly women who were in the group, were coming over to me and saying, "Are you okay? That was really tough." And that was nice to get some validation from people. And there was a wonderful, I decided I was just going to pack up and go home. Like, I'm not tolerating this, you know. And that was my old pattern, to just suck it up, hold it in, and go and hide. And so that night I thought to myself, you know what? No, he's not getting away with this. I am not going home. I paid good money to be here. I deserve to be here. He was wrong. And this doesn't end like this. The thought of going home and having to tell my story to my husband, that, you know, someone had made me cry again, was too unbearable. So I stayed there the night, and there was another wonderful woman. She was older than me, and she was actually a doctor, so she had a lot of life experience as well. And she came up to me and she said, do you want to know why he picked on you? And I said, yeah, why? Why do you think? And she said, because he knows that, you know, he's got a little dick and he doesn't like that. And that just broke my state.
Yeah.
And from there, like, the dark cloud lifted and we had a great laugh. And I sort of puffed my chest out and I went, yeah, I do know he's got a little dick and he's not getting away with it. So it was a brilliant moment. That's something that I love, love, love about women.
Yes.
Like, we're just such great support and mentors for each other.
Well, we like lionesses, you know, we get so protective over our kind and our children and anybody who's being bullied or pushed down. We kind of rise up.
Yes.
Called lioness arising, and we want to just protect and kill if necessary. Not really, you know, going to protect everybody. So that's awesome that she came to you and said that to you.
It was a defining moment for me. So it was wonderful. And I guess that is also what inspired me to want to mentor women and be there for them, to support them when times were difficult for them.
That's amazing.
So the next morning I got up and we sort of would go into a conference room and talk about, you know, what we'd been learning and what happened the day before and whatnot. So when it got to my turn to share, I said, I had a terrible day yesterday. You humiliated me in front of everybody. You had no right to do that. And then I listed the things that he had said and why they were wrong. And I just ended that. And I said, so, you know, well, there's a horsemanship turn of, you know, fight or flight. So I said, I'm not sure right now whether I'm going to stay and fight or flee and go home. And I stopped, and the rest of the room burst into applause.
Wow.
And it was an amazing moment for me. And I was very calm, and, you know, there wasn't an emotion charge, it wasn't an attack of him. It was simply communicating to him that what he'd done wasn't okay. Yeah, so it was an awkward moment for him. However, you know, we moved on. And at morning tea time, lots of women came up to me and said, oh my goodness, that was amazing. How did you do that? You're my hero. So again, you know, women validating women.
Yeah.
And when I thought about it, and I thought, wow, how did I do that? Because, you know, my old pattern was to just cry and go home and hide. And so I thought, how did I do that? And it was that moment where I realized that learning horsemanship had made me into a better person, a more resourceful person. And, you know, I'd learned skills like how to remain calm, you know, in the face of, you know, things going scary or messy, and how to have patience and more kindness, and, you know, be the person that the horse needed me to be in a situation where they didn't know what to do in the human world. Yeah. And of course, yeah, a lot more bravery, you know, being able to just sit through and remain calm when things got a bit messy.
Excellent. That's a good analogy from your horse learning to life skills. Wow.
Yeah. There is an enormous amount of similarity between training a young horse and educating a horse as there is to raising a child, because you're teaching the horse how to behave, how to be resourceful, how to be safe in the human world, because, you know, they've got no idea, they're horses. And just too often we expect way too much of them.
True.
So yeah, so that's how the horsemanship came into it, and from there I decided, you know what, I can help other women through, you know, communicating with their horses, also how to learn the skills that I'd learned. So I started on this journey of, you know, I went back to study again. I love learning. So I went back and I did a life coach certification, and started my own little business.
Bravo.
Yeah, mentoring women. So that's how I started. And getting onto the journaling now. Yes, that's why we're here.
No, but
I think
your story is so needs to be heard by many more people.
Yeah, thank you. One of the first things that I did that changed my life around, because everything we do, as you know, is nothing more than a pattern and a habit, and, you know, a conditioned response, a strategy that we've learnt that gets us an outcome. It might not be the outcome we say we want, but it's an outcome that we're comfortable with. So one of the first things I did that had such a huge impact on my life is to start a daily gratitude journal. And that was life-changing, because all of a sudden I was creating space in my day to focus on me and what was important to me, and to really change that mindset from focusing on the negative and the fearful to actually focusing on all the beauty and wonder and great things that we already have right here, right now, in this moment. You know, the only thing that exists is this moment. Other than that, it's just thinking about the past or thinking about the future. They don't even exist. We're just thinking about it. So that was one of the greatest benefits of the daily gratitude journal, was bringing me into the present and allowing me to focus on the positive and all the good that already existed within my life and within me. So I'm a great advocate of keeping a daily gratitude journal. Hence, I'm here to share that message.
That's excellent. And how many, because I remember at one stage I used to think of 10 things I was grateful for, which could just be my car, the roof over my head, my clothes, my job, that type of thing. Can it be things like that are a given for a lot of people, but might not be a given for some, you know?
Yeah, well, like you know, those things you listed, I mean, what do they say? If we've got clean drinking water and a roof over our head, we're in the top, is it 6% of wealthiest people in the world? So, you know, we're just so fortunate. Well, we're in Australia, And quite often we're just taking it all for granted and instead focusing on the negative. Actually, that's another thing I stopped doing. I stopped watching the news. Yeah, because the news is not actually the news. It's just information distorted in order to share a message that whoever's designing the news wants to be shared.
Yeah, that's true. That could be a whole different discussion that they...
Couldn't it?
Yeah, a whole different discussion. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
I've just found in my one journal that I was writing I go on and off of journals, so I do it for a while and then I stop. And once you stop, it's really tough to get going. But here on, I don't know if it was the day, but February the 1st this year, I think. Grateful today to be blessed with my granddaughters and life in general, also my pets. So that's all I find that day to put. But you know, so long as you're looking at the positive, I guess that's what's important.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, quite often I will write, you know, something like, you know, I'm grateful for the toilet during the night that's only, you know, 3 or 4 meters away in the ensuite. I mean, what a luxury.
So true. I remember camping in the middle of nowhere on the border between, we did the Nullarbor drive between Perth and I think we went as far as Canberra actually. And we were in that small little place on the border between WA and wherever. And we couldn't, our room, they made a mistake, so we ended up staying in this little room with a bed that was like this and nothing else in the room. It was a hot night, there was no air conditioning, but we had to walk outside along the path quite far to the public toilets. So when you said that, that's the first thought that came to my mind. Yes, I should say I'm grateful that my toilet's right there and that it works. Not that we want to put this...
you resonate with that, Jackie? Totally. And not only that, but a flushing toilet.
Very important, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. And are we going to sit complaining all day long when we've got a flushing toilet readily accessible during the night when we really have to go?
My toilet story is to be grateful that my son... I've got to reframe this because he wakes me up every morning at 4:30 or 5 o'clock to come and use the toilet next to my bedroom. Like, he comes to my ensuite toilet to go to the toilet. Not anywhere else in the house, but he comes to my toilet. So I should be grateful that he's comfortable enough to wake me up or to have a home that he can actually do that. And yeah, that's my toilet.
Yeah.
Gratefulness.
And he's only 21, I bet.
But yeah, 6 going on 21. 6 going on 16, I can tell you.
Good on you.
That's good, Jackie, to look at it with a different, instead of, oh no, you've woken me up again, to think, oh, aren't I blessed that I've got you and that you're here with me and that you trust me.
Yes.
So that's a great spin on it. So
it is. And what I love about that also is it's a choice. Everything's a choice. So yeah, we can choose to complain about that, or we can choose to embrace it and think how grateful I am to have a son who's 8 going on 21 using my toilet. So I love that. That is such a good reframe.
Yeah, Jackie, well done. That's awesome. So I'm going to be imagining that when I take my dog out for the bathroom. It's not quite the same, but at 3
yes, it is just the same.
Like 3 in the morning. I try and ignore her padding around in my room, stumps, you know, like up and down. And I'm like, I wonder if I ignore her, if she'll just lie down, and then eventually I think shame. So then I bring her out and she runs outside. But
yeah, well, you know, how much gratitude for her not just doing it on the carpet or on the bed or finding a little spot somewhere in the house. Yeah.
Well, we don't want to end your wonderful story on the toilet. So have you got any other key you've offered, so we're going to be giving away one of your lovely journals to a lucky participant. So Jackie, you're it, because you came on. There'll be people on Facebook, but they weren't on the Zoom. So that's nice to have an audience that is here with us so we can interact. So congratulations. I didn't know Sally had them, and I told her that I was going to give away one, and then she offered one of hers. So woohoo, that'll be great. So we can connect, and you can share your address. But then Sally's also offered, you can explain what it is, a giveaway or downloadable Metadynamics thinking profile.
Yeah.
So I've got the links and the code that you sent through to me, which we can put in the YouTube comments, etc. But do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, so the Metadynamics thinking profile was created by Sharon Pearson from the Coaching Institute, and it's a research-backed questionnaire that produces a report which tells us, which gives you a score on the 4 quadrants of our thinking, and it shows us where our strengths and our weaknesses are. And just by tweaking that a little, like, the first archetype is a visionary. If we don't have a strong vision of how we would like our life to be, what are we moving towards? We're probably just moving away from pain. So it's really important to have a clear vision. And the second archetype is the architect. And the architect is very good at putting systems in place and structures and standards that enable the person to bring their vision into reality. So if we've got gaps there, that is going to hold us back from creating our vision. And keeping a daily gratitude journal is part of that archetype. It's a structure, a daily habit that's necessary in order for us to, stay in that positive mindset and stay in that mindset of acknowledging and validating ourselves. And it's quite kind of like quantum. We're thinking the reality that we want into existence. So it's like that vibration when we're positive and we've got clarity on what it is we want, and we come from a place of love and joy and thankfulness and gratitude. That's what comes to us. Like the vibration of our energy brings more of that to us. So the journal really keeps us on track. And I heard you say, you do it for a little while and then you give up. The beauty of this one is it has a structure to it. So in the morning, there's 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make today great, and a couple of affirmations. Okay. So how long does that take? 5 minutes a day. And then in the evening, before you go to bed, same thing, 3 things that I'm grateful for today. And, they don't have to be earth-shattering. They can just be about the toilet or a hot shower or a cup of tea. And we can also put in there, things that we don't have yet that we want. I am a successful businesswoman. And by doing that, we're languaging and creating the space for that to come into our life. So that, there's just so many benefits to it.
So is your journal,
and it's got to be a daily habit.
Or for a month, or how long would your journal book last us?
Oh, this one lasts for 3 months. It's 90 days.
Wow.
And it's got to become a lifetime habit. That's most people start it and then they give up, and then they can say, oh, it didn't work. And the other thing is, we're retraining our neural pathways, literally. We're changing the neurology of our brain to say, I'm worthy, I'm worth this. I put myself first. I value myself enough to spend 5 minutes a day doing an activity, a habit that is research proven to change my life. And, you know, I'm evidence. I've been doing it for 4 years and my life just, it blows me away. Sometimes, you know, I get scared because I think, oh my God, how did this happen? You know, it's like, I love that Marianne Williamson quote of, it is not the dark that scares us, it is the light. Knowing, and it goes on, you know, knowing how powerful we actually are when we let go of that, all those fears, and embrace love and really step into our own power and what that can bring us.
Stepping into ourselves, that's so true.
Yeah. And like I said, this is the foundation to doing that. It's step one. Like, we only have to do one step at a time. And, you know, if you fill out your journal in the morning and the rest of your day is shit, that's okay. At least you've done your journal. Like, so at night you can say, you know, I'm grateful that I did my journal in the morning.
And I guess if you can't think of anything, you know, if you're having a really tough day and by the night time, you could actually go and read back some of the good things and might just poke you into remembering that, oh yes, you know, I could wash my teeth this morning, or somebody said hello to me that on the bus or something like that. So yeah, that's so good. I've loved chatting to you. Who knew?
Thank you.
Valuable. I wish more women would have got on, but we're going to put it on YouTube and we'll promote it a lot, and you can put it on your website or your Facebook page as well from the YouTube.
Thank you.
Because what you were sharing is so invaluable, because as Jackie and I know, it's a tough journey out there for a lot of men and women. You know, from when they've been children, and we carry that with us forever, unless we don't. I guess it will still always be there, but unless we don't work through that stuff, that we might not even know why we are like we are, but it's really good to do. So I'm going. Can
I just add one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
One more thing that I'd love to share is, you might have heard of Dr. Gabor Mate, and he's a doctor and a trauma specialist, quite well known. You know, if you wanted to Google his name, Gabor Mate. And I love what he says is that trauma isn't necessarily something that happened to us. Trauma is also not getting our needs met that we required as a child.
Wow.
And I think that pretty well puts us all into the bucket of I've had trauma, because, you know, when we're children, there were so many times when our needs weren't met, like emotionally, I'm talking about, you know, go and sit in the corner. We have it's the same with a horse. You know, when a horse loses its cool, you know, instead of belting it for doing that, you know, step back, give it some space, give it some validation, give it some encouragement. Same thing with a child, you know, when they lose their cool, you know, rather than send them off into their room to be isolated and more frightened, just be there with them and hold them and say, it's okay, buddy, I got you. Yeah.
That is so important. And that I found this little note on my computer here that Ivy, who's a little 6-year-old granddaughter of mine, who's gorgeous, she wrote this note to me and she brought it to me in the kitchen the other day. It's normally I love you, Granny. But this one was I love you, exclamation, exclamation. Can you please hug me? Yes or no, and a heart. And I was like, oh my God, I'll hug you. And she said, I've got a circle.
Wow.
You can hug me. But she was obviously, I don't know why I hug her all the time, but she was obviously feeling she needed a hug or validation, and she wanted to check with me that I would hug her. It was the strangest thing, but
you know, there's just so much to love about that. The fact that she was able to write down what her need was and then come to you and ask for that.
Yeah.
You know, and the playfulness with it too. Like, what an awesome little girl.
Yeah. Because I just said, of course, and I went to grab it. And she said, no, first you've got to write it on the paper. Yes.
I love kids. I just love being with kids.
This morning, and I was reading and thinking, oh, geez, you know, that makes me in a way, it makes me sad that she had to come and ask, but it might have been something she was working through in her brain. I don't know. But
Yeah. Well, no, I don't, you know, like there's no meaning, only the meaning that we make of it.
yeah,
And the meaning I put on that is that she just feels so safe and loving towards you
yeah,
that she can come and
yeah,
ask you for her needs.
yeah.
And also that she has the skills
Mm,
to write it and verbalize it. I mean, and I just love the playfulness about it as well.
yeah. No, she's very much like her granny. She spent way too much time with me. All right, well, we're going to end here. It's been
Sounds like you're doing a great job.
thank you. It's been 45 minutes, but it's been amazing. And I think we need to have another one of these sessions with you where you can tell more women your story. Maybe an evening session we can work up, but we can work it out. And I just want to say that despite you being nervous, you've done an awesome job, don't you think, Jackie? I mean, yeah, awesome, awesome. We had all the towels to jump in and help, but you were awesome. So thank you so much for taking the time today and for coming on and offering your journal to Jackie. That's wonderful. And if anybody wants the journal too, if you've watched this all the way to the end, you can contact Sally and she'd love to send you one. Maybe
just
maybe,
look me up on Facebook and add me as a friend and connect.
that's wonderful. I've loved your story. I'm so glad that you made it through and that you're blossoming on the other end so well. And kudos to your husband for persevering and pursuing. He deserves a clap as well.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to stop the live now. Thanks everybody for coming
Okay.
on. And
Thank you, everyone.
I'll just stop the live and we'll see you all on the other side.